Walter working side by side, tearing fabric to make bandages. Victoria is leading the process. They're midway through their work.
All I'm saying is, if you must concede, there is some irony in the fact that I sailed all the way from New York to find myself organizing medical supplies, which I was already doing at my hospital. I must say, I confess myself, disappointed in the CPUSA's lack of imagination.
I voted for women to have the choice to become frontline soldiers, Miss Victoria. I share your frustration.
No, Mr. Walter, that is far too thin of a strip to be of any use. Unless one is bandaging a cat, measure it properly at the top and make a small incision before you tear.
Why do I get the feeling I might come to regret offering you my assistance during my afternoon off?
Mr. Walter, you know that hard work is good for the soul. My grandmother used to always tell me, if you want something bad enough, you'll just have to be sweating your brains out by the time you get it.
I knew it! I knew I heard a southern accent underneath all that New York. Where are you from?
I grew up in Arkansas with my grandmother. My folks passed when I was young, so she raised me up.
Neighbors. I'm from Missouri. I live in Jefferson City now. Sweating your brains out. Now that's a classic. After a particularly long shift, my daddy used to always say he was as busy as a church fan in dog days.
Busier than a moth in a minute.
I don't even have time to cuss the cat.
I can't tell you the last time I heard that one. Ooh, Mr. Walter, you're making me miss my grandmother something fierce.
Does she know you're here?
Yeah, I write to her every week. We're the only family the other has, and I couldn't keep something like this from her, even if I wanted to. She knows me too well. She'd read the deceit between the lines. She disapproves. She feels like I'm fighting in some white man's battle. I think, even though I've explained 100 times that this battle is for all of us, that I'm standing in solidarity with my fellow workers and all oppressed peoples, part of a great progressive force.
Unity must be won, and only the workers, the class-conscious workers themselves,
can win it by stubborn and persistent effort. Some classic Lenin, eh? An oldie but a goodie.
Indeed, Miss Victoria. I confess myself somewhat a disciple.
Lenin was, of course, essential to the success of the revolution. I grant you that, but I must admit I'm a Stalinist.
You know, they are said to have clashed toward the end of Lenin's life.
Indeed, and even so, Stalin still ended up with the top job. That takes skill, talent, and to be frank, ruthlessness.
But surely there is a difference between taking a firm stance and, forgive me, terrorizing your people, as he seems to be doing.
But how can you say that? I mean, when you see the other side and the depths to which they sink, the cruelty that they exhibit at will, we need our leaders to be strong.
Strong, yes, but these reports, the fellow communists disappearing, executed without trial, that is not the world I am fighting
I
for.
presume you are not so naive as to think the overthrow of capitalism will be bloodless. Or that your dear Lenin would agree with your pacifism.
Pacifism? Would I be here if I was a pacifist?
It is disloyalty to question the general secretary. There will always be those who lack the imagination, the fearlessness to embrace more extreme methods. I myself applaud them.
Why?
Because I'm tired of waiting for things to change. I have waited and waited and waited and nothing changes, not really. Not until people are afraid of what will happen if things stay the same. I don't want generations, centuries for that change to come. I haven't got the time, Mr. Walter.
So that excuses any abuses, any violence, any crimes, no matter their severity.
By any means necessary.
Well, therein lies our difference. I believe that change is best achieved through freedom, and I'm here to protect that very thing. Aren't we all, miss? Freedom from capitalism isn't freedom if you are afraid of being wrenched from your bed.
But perhaps that is your problem. You're afraid of too many things.
Are you calling me a coward, miss?
Buenos días, camaradas.
Buen dia, Capitan.
Did I interrupt something?
We were just discussing the merits and demerits of Comrade Lenin.
Where are you now? I heard him speak once in Russia after the revolution.
You were in Russia?
Of course. Everyone who was anyone was trying to get into St. Petersburg. After all the years of struggle, we all wanted a front row seat. I had been arrested during the general strike here in Spain for spitting on an officer. When I got out, I felt it was prudent to disappear for a while. I smuggled myself into a Red Cross train into Russia. I was there about 3 years, all told. The Tsarist troops were defeated the winter after I came back.
And you heard him speak? When?
In 1918, after traitor Romanov had been executed. The war was raging, violently ravaging the country, and the peasants were resisting. Like a child who has been battered, they were fighting for their own freedom. So we became enemies with the very people who we were saving.
It is unfortunate so many of them had to die before they could realize.
Indeed, Comrade Victoria.
Scene 7, Dugout, March 1937. Jim is whistling songs, smoking, playing solitaire. His knee is still wrapped in a bandage from the battle. After a time, Victoria enters with a medical kit. Jim stands and removes his cap.
Oh, Miss Victoria, how do you do?
Quite well, Mr. James.
Jim, miss, not James.
Oh, right, I forgot, Jim. Only
James
we were
makes
seeing
it
so
like
many
my
new people
grandfather.
here.
He's
Yes,
a wee
no,
bastard.
it's really hard to keep up. Excuse me?
My grandfather, he was a... Well, he was a wee rotten wee bastard.
I can take a look at your knee. I would rather you came to the hospital, but much more sanitary, but apparently you aren't to leave your post.
Thank you for coming. That's, for your help with my knee.
May I? Sorry.
No worries, miss.
How's the lookout? See anything interesting?
Chance would be a fine thing. Haven't seen anything interesting since I got put here after my knee. Active duty. Bloody hell. They should call it inactive duty for all the good it's doing.
Well, at least you're a soldier. On the front line. I came all the way from New York in the middle of a war, nonetheless, and yet I find myself doing the exact same job I did at home. I'm more than happy to contribute to the fight in any way I can. It's just, of course, it's just that they promise this integration will be about women, the same way it's about colored folks. It's just they won't let any of us fight.
What's New York like?
Much better than Arkansas, I assure you.
Is it like the movies? All glittery and everything open, like, and people eating in the streets, like?
Well, I'm not sure I will call it glittery, but things are certainly open late. It's a unique place,
And the trains run all through the night, eh? That's what one of the boys told me, the tall boy with the dark hair.
Yeah, it's true. The trains run all night long.
God help us. Oh, have you been there then?
3 years this past winter, with the exception of the time I spent here.
And you like it better than
Arkansas. Yes, I do. I miss my grandmother terribly, but it's better for me to be there, up north on the coast.
Oh, because of your, well, you know, like your...
Yeah, both. Both. It's better for women, and it's better for black folks.
Understood.
After I finished high school, I applied for 3 nursing schools in Arkansas. Not a single one would hire me, even though I was perfectly well qualified. So I began my studies in New York, training at the Harlem Hospital's training school. I've nursed ever since, all while organizing for the Communist Party, who jumped at the chance to come over.
It's not fair. You're a great nurse, whatever colour you are. And I don't know why they won't let you fight.
So, what about you? Spent your whole life in Scotland then?
Aye, miss. Born and bred Ouija.
A what now?
A Ouija. A Glaswegian.
And what's that like?
Ah, it's Glasgow, innit? The people are grand, but it's tough. A lot of poverty, hungry faces and that. I suppose that's injustice everywhere.
Amen. May I have a cigarette?
Of course. It's quite interesting, actually, like, being here. Not the war. The war's fucking boring as hell, anything so far. But meeting so many folks from all over the world, I'd hardly ever met anyone that wasn't from Britain. And even then, very few who weren't Scots. A few folks from the colonies who moved over and what, but that's pretty rare. For them to come to us, I mean. It just makes you think, doesn't it? I was talking to an Indian lad, and of course, well, to them anyways, we're the oppressor.
And what is it that makes you said it makes you think, doesn't it? What does it make you think about your empire? That it's incompatible with your socialist principles? That it relies on subjugation, principally of people who look like me, to enrich others, principally people who look like you?
I assure you, miss, no one is enriching me.
No, not you personally, but you do acknowledge at the very least the irony that you are here fighting for Spanish right to self-determination and liberation, while your king sits at the head of an empire that denies that very thing to tens and millions of people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's complicated.
How is it complicated?
It just is. Look.
Back in 1935, there was a terrible flooding all across the Midwestern region of the United States. The Red Cross put out an appeal for nurses, volunteers to travel and provide humanitarian aid. But when I volunteered, they told me they didn't want Negroes, that my services were not required. So no. Fantasies that are built upon the subjugation of others offer me no escape, even as fantasies.
I'm no good with words. Someone smarter than me with more schooling could describe it better than I am.
I think you're smart, Mr. Jen.
And I think you should be on the front lines with us, Miss Victoria. You're quicker than most of the men, I'll tell you that for nothing.
I don't see that happening anytime soon. They've just about managed to wrap their heads around color men as their equals. But women, and colored women, I'm not holding my breath. I really should head back.
Just stay a bit, Miss Victoria.
They're waiting for me at the hospital.
In fact, it's lovely to have some company up here. If I'm honest, 6-hour shifts, there is only so many games a guy can have of solitaire before he feels like he's going round the twist.
Nevertheless, we'll have the new volunteers. Their hearts are in the right place, but they have no training and no real schools. I'm needed, Mr. Jin.
That must be a nice feeling. I don't feel needed at all.
Victoria smiles, slightly sadly. As she passes, Jim reaches out and brushes his hand against hers. They both shift slowly into a brief handhold, not looking at each other. After a beat, they let go.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jin.
Jim tips his hat.
Perdón, camaradas. Doctor,
Camarada Victoria, no sabía que hablabas español.
no duermes en un hospital en Harlem si no puedes hablar español. Brillante.
Debo regresar a mis labores. Gracias, camarada Elena.
Diego takes his leave.
¿Quiere café? Sí, por favor.
Elena fills a cup of coffee for Victoria and hands it to her.
I thought you Lincolns were over the ridge today.
Los hombres, sí, pero no fighting for the women. ¿Recuerdas?
Americans.
Americans.
We're running out of coffee. Running out of everything.
The ambulance is busted. The heating apparatus gave out days ago, and the whole thing is basically worthless. We don't have the tools we need.
I don't know how much longer we can hold out.
Most of the times, the troops sit around doing nothing. And then when there is something to do, we don't have the materials we need to do it properly. It's maddening. Pero, otra gallo cantara.
Oye, tu español es perfecto, déjame decirte.
Gracias.
You learned all of this at your
I
hospital?
practiced the speaking at the hospital, but I learned from books. Julia de Acere, Masananes, Cervantes, Lorca. I would take the books from the library and read them side by side in English and in Spanish.
Lorca es uno de mis grandes héroes.
I know a ripe so secret it requires an old rusty pen. And I know the horror of open eyes on plates of concrete surfaces. But I want neither world nor dream nor divine voice. I want my freedom, my human love, in the darkest corner of the breeze that no one wants. My human love.
Mi amor humano. Bello. Ese es uno de mis favoritos.
I confess I wept for an afternoon when I read that he had died.
How many must die for these monsters to see reason?
As many as necessary. Till all are free.
But surely there must be a limit.
I mean, the death of one man, this is a catastrophe. Hundreds of thousands of deaths? It's just a statistic.
You can't mean that. You mean to say that you never question, even once, what are we doing here?
Of course not. And if I were you, I wouldn't share these feelings with anyone else. You do not want others to start having questions of their own about you. Buen dia, camarada.
Victoria and Walter are mid-conversation in the tent.
It was the middle of the night. I saw the flashlights and heard the screams, and that was that.
That was that? Surely it cannot be that simple, Victoria.
Then KPD know better than I or you when someone has taken action against the party. And when you do, they take you. We cannot have any infiltrators behind our lines.
But what did he do?
It doesn't matter what he did. He has gone to Russia and they will figure it out.
What will happen to him?
They work in their own ways. That is not for you or me to know.
I can't.
And I suggest you put him out of your mind. Thinking about what he did or where he has gone is not our concern, and spending any more time on it will take your concentration off the task at hand.
That is ridiculous. A man who we knew, who we fought beside, who was here long before you or I, is gone. And I am supposed to never think about it again?
Exactly.
How can you be so cruel?
It is not cruelty, Walter. It is practicality. It is a lesson to be learned.
There is no lesson in disappearing someone who does not see eye to eye with you.
We are all parts of a machine, a vast machine. When an engine breaks down, you remove the broken parts so that it can continue to function. When a tumor grows, you remove it so you can save the rest of your organs.
He is a person, not an engine or an organ. A person with more devotion, more passion, and frankly, more courage than you could ever have.
You do not know the waters you are treading in, and defending him further will not only be a stain on you, but a stain on this entire unit. We are lucky they did not take us all.
What are you talking about?
They took him because he was a Bukharian sympathizer. Trotskist.
How do you know all this?
You think I don't speak to other people outside of this tent? You think I sit alone when I'm not with you?
I'm not saying that.
I was in the infirmary. I came out of my tent. And I saw them beating him, dragging him away. When he was gone, the men came into the tent and asked for a rag and a bandage for his bloody knuckles, and I obliged. And he explained to me what was going on.
But you do not know that he did anything.
Do I know for sure what he did? Of course not. Do I wish that he did not do whatever it was and that he was still by our side? Of course. Wishing will get us nowhere. His reasons were entirely his own, and I do not pretend to know what they were. But that is no longer relevant. He is halfway to Russia by now.
There must be something we can do. You talk and talk about your ideals and politics and never once stop to think about what actually happens to
That is
people.
not fair.
What's not fair is what they'll do to him. That they took him in the first place.
Walter moves with the start and begins to head out of the camp.
Where are you going?
To get him back. To file an appeal. To do anything other than stay here talking to you
There
for
is
another
nothing
second.
you can do.
You don't
Walter.
know that.
Don't be a fool. You are an ant to them. Trying to do anything to help them will only see you crushed under their boot.
I have to
You
try.
don't! And you shouldn't. You are a good fighter, comrade. A good communist, and they know that. But trying to do anything on his behalf will have you end up like him. Stop! Just stop talking. He will already be on a train to Moscow. He'll be interrogated and he will confess what he has done. Once his confession is signed, they will take him to the basement and put a bullet in his head. Diego is dead. There is no sense in you dying